After the floodwaters receded, the three sons of Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, emerged as the fathers of a new humanity. But their journey was marked by drama, controversy, and a surprising twist that changed the course of history. Which son was cursed, and which one was blessed? Join me as we uncover the intriguing story of the sons of Noah, a tale of family, legacy, and the power of faith. Don't miss this epic adventure. Subscribe now and hit the notification bell. Share with someone who loves a good story from the Bible. We are first introduced to Noah's sons in Genesis 6 verse 10. Noah had three sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Scripture is clear that Noah had three sons before the flood event. In the Genesis 5 genealogies, several patriarchs list only the firstborn son and then state that they had other sons and daughters before their death. When we are told about Noah's death in Genesis 9 verse 29, it doesn't say that he had other sons and daughters. So based on what is accounted in Scripture, we assume that Noah only had three sons. In the Bible, Noah had three sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. These three are notably featured in the book of Genesis, especially in the narratives surrounding the story of Noah's Ark and the subsequent repopulation of the earth after the Great Flood. Here's what each of them is mainly known for: heritage and legacy. Shem is traditionally considered the ancestor of the Semitic peoples, including the Hebrews, Assyrians, and Elamites. This lineage makes him a significant figure in Jewish, Christian, and Islamic traditions. Biblical mention. He is often mentioned first among Noah's sons, which some scholars interpret as a sign of his prominence or seniority. In Genesis 11, the Table of Nations lists the nations descended from Shem, emphasizing his role in the genealogy of Abraham and, subsequently, the Israelites. Notable event. Ham is infamously known for his act of seeing his father Noah naked and telling his two brothers, which led to Noah cursing Ham's son Canaan. This story has been subject to various interpretations and is significant in biblical narratives. Descendants. Ham is traditionally considered the progenitor of the Hamitic peoples, who are thought to include ancient Egyptians, Ethiopians, Libyans, and Canaanites. His lineage is often associated with regions in Africa and parts of the Near East. Expansion and descendants. Japheth is associated with the expansion of peoples, often thought to be the progenitor of the Indo-European groups. In the Table of Nations in Genesis 10, his descendants are listed as the people who spread into maritime nations in the Mediterranean area. Legacy. The narrative suggests that Japheth's descendants lived in the coastlands of the nations, implying a wide geographical spread and possibly a variety of cultures stemming from his line. Once the flood ended, we are told of two specific events involving Noah's sons before Scripture goes into the genealogies of Shem, Ham, and Japheth. The first event after coming off the ark was Noah building an altar for the Lord. Then Noah built an altar to the Lord and, taking some of all the clean animals and clean birds, he sacrificed burnt offerings on it. On receiving this offering, God gives what is now called the Noahic covenant. It is the promise that God would "Never again will I destroy all living creatures by waters." The second event mentioned is the cursing of Canaan, the son of Ham. There are a lot of unclear details about this event. What is recorded is that Noah became drunk. Ham did not look away from his father's naked body. Shem and Japheth did not look and sought to cover their father's nakedness. Because of this event, once Noah awoke, Noah cursed his grandson Canaan and blessed Shem and Japheth. In The Nature of Ham's Sin, Nicholas Odiambo argues that Ham's sin was that he failed to cover his father's nakedness. H.C. Leupold suggests that Ham neglected to respect his father's godliness. Dr. Thomas Constable observes, Shem and Japheth's act of covering their father's nakedness was similar to God's act of covering Adam and Eve's nakedness. It was a godly thing to do. After the cursing of Canaan and the blessing of Shem and Japheth, we are told that Noah died at 950 years old. Genesis 10 proceeds with the Table of Nations, where we learn the three sons of Noah fathered descendants who became nations, and the nations spread out over the earth after the flood. In Genesis 11, we are given the account of the Tower of Babel. The verses in Genesis 11 tell us that all nations had one language, but because of their pride, they set out to build a tower that reaches to the heavens. As a consequence of this action, the Lord confused the language of the whole world. This action caused the scattering of nations over the earth. After the flood, we are told that Ham had 4 sons: Cush, Egypt, Put, and Canaan. The table of nations in Genesis 10 and 1 Chronicles 1 verses 10 to 12 states that Ham's son Egypt was the father of the Ludite, Anamites, Leabites, Naphtuhites, Pathrusites, Caphtorites, and Casluhites, which is the origin of the Philistine nation. Ham's son, Canaan, is the father of the Hittite, Amorite, Girgashite, Hivites, Archites, Sinites, Arvadite, Zamorite, and Hamathite nations. However, the descendant of Ham that has the most notoriety is Cush's son Nimrod. From Genesis 10, we are told that Nimrod became a mighty warrior and that the centers of his kingdom were Babylon, Uruk, Akkad, and Calneh, and Shinar. Alyssa wrote states that beyond the few mentions of Nimrod in scripture, legends and tales galore have sprung up about this elusive figure. Many nations descended from Ham play a heavy role in opposition to the Hebrew people throughout the Old Testament. Within the table of nations, the 7 sons of Japheth are given only 3 verses, but we are told that they became maritime people. Easton's Bible Dictionary tells us that Japheth was the progenitor of many tribes inhabiting the east of Europe and the north of Asia. Japheth's son Gomer is said to have inhabited northern Europe and been the father of the Celts. Medai is said to be the father of the Medes, and Javan is the father of the Ionian or Greek nation. Shem's descendants are listed in 2 places in Genesis, the table of nations in Genesis 10 and again after the events of the Tower of Babel. In Genesis 10, we get a quick overview of all 5 of Shem's sons. Then, in Genesis 11, we get a more detailed view of Shem's son Arphaxad, as the focus of the book of Genesis turns from worldwide events to God working through the one family and future nation that the Messiah would come as promised to Adam and Eve as the time of the fall. While the descendants of Shem communicate another list of genealogies, Genesis explicitly guides the reader down the lineage of Abraham, the father of the Hebrew nation, which is the focus of the remainder of the Old Testament writings. While there are many myths, legends, and debates about Noah's sons in Scripture alone, we are told a lot about family and the importance of character in the events in the lives of Noah's sons. But even more profound than those gems, the players are put in place for God's plans for his people. Not the Hamites, Japhethites, and Semites, but for all nations, all peoples. God's plan from before Noah and his sons was to make way for us to return to the fellowship of Eden and gain the righteousness of God.